Okay, so let's get underway with looking at Pro Tools. We click on Pro Tools and open it, and you will soon see the various spaces that we're going to move through. And this will get you across the foundations of Pro Tools. So as it loads up now, it'll come up with its main window for us to look at saving. So it will, if you're talking about the ones in the lab, it will have a location where it's already set up to save into that space. If you are talking about something you've set up, you'll have the option to be able to save that for yourself. So the session that we're about to go into now is about just reviewing those basics to introduce you into Pro Tools and the setup. We did it that first week, but there's been a huge lag of time, so that we're better off to start building this body of knowledge as we go along. So this is the window, and what we do here is just change the endless thousands of untitled into, and I'll just mark mine as Jones Test. And from there, you'll see that it's down here, BWF, that is broadcast wave, and that one is preset, and that's what we stay with. The bit depth rate, you can do it at 16 or 32, but we traditionally do 24, which is more than adequate for the work we're doing, and that would be pretty much the same as CDs. We used to do it 44.1 for audio. It is now 48. So just in case you've been around somewhere that has talked about 44.1, radio moved to 48 kilohertz, which is the same as the video. So it's a uniform thing. And that's down here where it has the preset, or you can click on location to send it off. When you hit create, oh yeah, and I did this before as a test. So, no, let's mark a test, test 2, and that'll save that problem. Let's go across. It'll open up, and as it opens up, first thing to show you, this one is referred to as the edit window. To toggle, you go to Command and plus, hold down Command, and you can then just toggle actually between on the plus. So I'm just holding down Command, and with the plus and minus, you can toggle between them. So that's the mix window, back to the edit window. So the edit window is where we want to be at the moment. So let's just set this up. Now, what we should do is set up a track. So we go on to track, which is at the top across all the selections, and it's just a file. Track, and you'll see here, create one mono audio track. Now we'll say, let's leave that, and I can hit create, which will just do that one, or I hit plus, and will allow me to also create one stereo track, or I could do 2 stereo tracks or 15 stereo tracks, won't matter what it is. And then when I hit create, it'll do those 2 as it is now. Next thing to note, labeling. This is where you can get very, very confused if you've got loads of tracks down here, which track is which. And so the first one, if we click on over the top of audio 1, it'll bring it up here into the label area for the naming. We just delete that. Now this one might be the male voice, and the abbreviation is VOX, Vox, for male voice or female voice, whatever it is. Now we can either say OK, and that will label that one, or we can click next, and rather than having to go backward and forward, they're all there. So if we go to that one, and I'll just mark that as say music file. And if I know I've only got the 2, I can tell it OK, and that's then done. Let's go back to the mix window, and I'll move the transport out of the way. You can see now the names are there, and this is where it works really well. So if you've got the male voice and you want to do certain things on it, then you can add effects, and we'll talk about that down the track. So to get rid of that, Command plus sign. Okay, so let's put some audio in. All I'm doing is I'm going up to File, going to Import Audio, and when that comes across, I'm just going to grab a song. It doesn't, for the purpose of this now, it doesn't matter. We will change to a file that will allow us to do some editing on it. So that's just breaking that song over into the track now. So as it's processing, what it's doing is it's also coming out and saying, do I want a new track or add it into my clip list? I'm telling it clip list because it adds it over here. Let me just extend that a bit. And typically if I brought in, 7 or 8 clips of something, they'll always be stacked here. Now that's the label, Way to Success. All I do is I click on that and drag and drop into it. So that'll come across. Now, all of that seems to be working really well because I could move that track, that particular file around on the track. But how do I do that? Where's the change? Oh, now hang on, we're going from a hand tool to a cursor. So there's some things changing. That's done up here. Let me just select the, what we'd refer to as probably the cursor. And if I'm moving with this here and I want to do some editing, that's the tool that we'll grab. Or if I'm going to highlight and delete something, I would use that. If I need to move the track around, I will grab the grabber or hand tool, and that will move my file around on the track. And then this particular one here is the trim tool, and then that is where I can bring, now this is something interesting around audio editing. So if I didn't want that particular bit there, I can either delete it or I could just bring the track where the ending is there, and that's what it will play from. It will start at that point. That's exactly where it will be. If I want to bring that right up to there, I can do that. So we're able to trim the track and work with it that way, but it's also non-destructible, so I can bring it back out and work with it. So that's what that's doing, and it will work on either end, and you'll see that bracket tool that's there, so I can bring the end right up, take it back out. So that's what it does. Now, it's a real pain to have to move from one tool to the other. As you can see, if I want to move the thing, I can't. I'm stuck with my trimming tool. So if I click here above all 3, that's what they refer to as the smart tool. It's linked all 3 of them. Now, if I'm up above the upper part of that track, so this is the track here, you can see that line, that top bit here, as soon as I move there, you'll see the hand. So right at the top of this file, that's where it will give me the cursor. If I move down, it'll give me the hand tool, the grab tool, and that'll allow me to move it around. The other features in here is it will allow me to do a basic fade in and a fade out to the track. So it allows me to do that. It would still allow me to do that trimming of the track like I showed you with the little bracket. It won't, simply because I've now trimmed the end by doing a fade in and a fade out, so that's changed. Of course, Control Z will undo all things, and if you see then with that gone, I can now do that trimming that I was talking about before. If you can't see the file really clearly, then what we do with that is we can come up and go to this magnification. We've got presets 1 through to 5. 2 will just give you that little bit more information. I can just move that along a bit, and you'll see a bit more information in there on the track. If I go to 3, then there's a lot more information I can see on the audio file. 4 gets a lot more detail, and then of course 5 is extremely in-depth, and we probably would never really use that because it's just fairly unworkable. It just starts becoming lines, and if I want to go back to the normal one, I can just hit 1, and that's what the track looks like on there. If sometimes, like if you get a really low level of on the track, and say like that bit here, this front bit where it's down a bit, if I just move this up, this will actually magnify the file itself. So you can see I'm getting more detail on that narrower part of the track, and of course it will just basically blur out that. If I go out to 2, I've got a lot more detail. So that's the purpose of that, and I can just bring that back down to where we were. So there's some key things. This up here, shuffle, slip, spot grid. The grids are these individual little blocks. That's used predominantly for music, simply because we want exact time, and that will help those who are mixing for music to work with that grid. We would typically be focused on slip and shuffle. So what does that do for us? If I make a cut here, which is done by Command E, I can pull that file away, and that's now ready for me to move it around, or as the name implies, I can slip it. It will slip over the top of that track, it'll slip beside it, but that's what it's going to do. It'll slip, this bit slips around. We can move it wherever we want to. I can move it, no, it won't go up because it's a mono track. But I could move those around. Now, if I, let me just show you here, if I take this bit out of that file and delete that, it will stay exactly where it is, and it just leaves the gap of where I just deleted that track. Let me just put that back in for us. And we'll go back to where we were. Oh, sort of. Read about that. That'll be fine. Now, if I go back up into Shuffle, you'll see what it does. If I come back in and I say, well, I want to delete that, just watch carefully to what this part of the track here will do with this part of the track. Straight in, and it snaps. So it's kind of like that snapped grid concept that you would know from video. I can't move it around though, because it's now in the shuffle mode. So this is really good if I just need to lose a little bit of some breath or maybe a noise that I don't need on an interview track. It will start to just snap it along the way. If I'm doing the same thing, let me now just change into slip mode and I delete. It will give me that bit of separation. So that shuffling is fantastic if you're doing a cleanup on an interview. This is, I don't mind working in slip because it just allows me to see where I've made changes, and then I can just assemble that track for myself. But both have some great uses. And then what you can do, where you have all these different files, I can just come up and highlight them, and we'll just assume that that's there now. I've got cut there, cut there, cut, cut, cut. If I go up to File, Edit, my apologies, down to Edit, and down to Consolidate Clip, if you watch what it's doing, it's now made it into one clip. It's now consolidated. So that is now the whole file. Now, because I didn't grab that bit of the track, it hasn't added that in. But if I realized I had done that and I matched it up, I could easily just go down holding Shift, highlight that bit, go through, check there's nothing else. Right, let's go back up. We'll go to Edit, down to Consolidate Clip, and it will make it all one. Over here in the clips area, you'll see we started with one, didn't we? But we've now got all these various little clips that are names in here, and you'll see them all the way named through to number 10. So let's just click on, I can't see 10. What else are we seeing up there? So you've got 2, that's the one that was just done. And the one that's left in bold is the original file. When they're just edited files, now because I've cut the track, it won't allow me to see it. But if I hadn't cut that, you'd see those things highlighting. But if this is just a bit of the file that I've got, I can now drag that back, but it's still a file. So all this non-destructible stuff that's going on is fantastic. It really helps. So if you cut something out you didn't mean to, then you can work your way back and find that. Okay, so that is really handy. And then you've got all those files are sitting there for you to work with. And I'm not having to guess here because this one here is Way to Success 02 or B02, and I've got that, and then I've got Music 02, that's that. So it is named it because that's the main track name. This is still the original naming. Way to Success is the track we're working with. So that's that. Another thing to show you here is you'll note with this file some data up here for us, and it starts at 0.4 or 0.04. That's here. That's that marker, and it ends 0.29, and that's here. That's into 0.30, so it's just recognised its end. And the length is the duration of that track, and it is 25 seconds long. If I click on this one, it's going to show you that it's at 0.31 or 31 seconds in. It stops at 2:48, and the length of the track is 2:16, so 2 minutes 16 seconds. So it's really important information for us to be across. If I just let me copy that, and I will go back into my Smart Tool. and I can just paste that into, is it going to let me do that? Oh, no, sorry, that's right, because let me see, or if I just drag, well, let me do that. No, it's not going to. Okay, let me just create another track and I can just show you something. And because it's the music track, I can do stereo. I'll just add that one in and I can just drag that down to stereo. It's going to do that. And so if I then said, all right, let me just see how this is sounding here. I'll go back a little bit. Okay, so now I've got some real noise because that's now that track and that track playing. All I need to do is go to the S, which is solo, and I'm going to just hear that track only. So this track is now the only one we'll hear. No matter what other audio is around, it'll still play. You'll see the LEDs working. So it's still playing and being recognized, but we've just muted it. So as I'm soloing this, it's M, or muting the other track. So you'd see those two tracks are now muted because I've soloed. If I take that off, all are available. If I want to just mute that track and that track, now I wouldn't do that because I'd solo is the quickest way to do it. And I might have another one down here that I want to mute and that one. If I want to hear these three things together, then that's the way I do that. So it'll play that, and now it won't play that, and it won't play that, and anything else that was muted. I then have to just go through and release the mutings. So that's sort of just some key things for you to be aware of as we build up our knowledge. So I think that's probably the key things. The only other tool that I was going to show you is this one is referred to as the scrubber tool. And that is like an old playhead on recording. I can just manually go over it. And that's really good if you're trying to just pick up any, where there might be a click or a noise or something. You can go over that, and that's the scrubbers tool. So I'll go back into the smart tool. So that's just a way of getting you back up into working with Pro Tools. The clicking here, what I'm doing to play is I'm just using my space bar, or alternatively, I can trigger it off here on the transporter and stop. If I want to record, I would put that into record mode and I would select that. I can't at the moment because it's not been configured to recognize a file coming into it. But if I was, that's what that would look like. That would be recording. If I click this, and you'll get another error message come up, that would then enable that. And what happens there, if I've got the cursor here, it's going to start recording in here. It doesn't affect these tracks. It's recording on this track only. And it will be a mono file, because we've set that up as a mono file. And it will record in there. And you'll see it go across as a pink colored file. Each track, once it's stopped, it'll go to the color assigned for track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, and they each have a different color, just visually easier to see. Okay, so that is our Pro Tools number 1, just to get you back up to speed and reminding you around some of the key things of Pro Tools and what to do with it. The software will be out as soon as we can get it to you. You've got Pro Tools First, you can download at the moment if you want to use that at home, just to become familiar with the windows. It'll look like this. And so that's what we'll do. The ones after this will just be building up your knowledge base, and to the point where you'll be able to do that assessment, which is up around mid-May from memory. But all that will be outlined for you as we come back from the break. Okay, so if you've got any questions or concerns, you can certainly message me and we will get those responded to for you as soon as we can. And that is all we need to do, and we'll end recording. Thank you.